and justice for all.
God bless America. All right, Joe Schramm, can you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thor Ackrey,
Here.
Sherry Ackrey,
Present.
Dan Darren,
Not here.
John Edwards,
Present.
Tom Healy,
Here.
Cynthia Isherwood,
Cindy, you muted.
Mike Janik,
Here.
Judy Jones,
Here.
Dave Perry,
Present, yeah. Yep. This is Cynthia.
I'm here. I got it. I fixed it.
Great.
all right, Cynthia.
All right.
Okay, Joe Souza,
Everybody should have, I'm present.
Dave Perry will be here. He's just has another meeting to go to.
All right, everybody should have received the meeting minutes from 5/6/21. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have unanimous consent? Further discussion? Okay, the motion carries. Okay. Discussion by Budget Committee members and Administrator on current status and presentation of any updates on information from committee members they have received on area budget that we want to revisit for reductions. Last week, I asked members to look at the budget for areas that they figured we could reduce our deficit in. Right, at this point, though, I'm going to have Chris with us to give us some information first, and we'll move a little bit forward on that, on the budget. So if Chris. Oh, I think he's on the phone.
Hang on just a second.
Okay,
I'm getting there.
all right.
It's just, you know, GL38 is Denise. I can't figure out how to get her renamed.
All right, we have Donna Cook joining us. Good evening, Donna.
I don't think Donna was meant to be admitted. I don't think so. I think, but maybe.
I
don't. I'm the dog. Well, it's not my
Hey,
dog.
Denise, I don't see myself there. Stop it. It's
So-
my dog. Sorry, guys.
Come on, Gibby.
Yeah.
I know when I left last time, and I was just going through.
Where am I?
Excuse me?
I don't see myself on screen. Am I there?
You're there, but there's no
there.
picture.
I don't know why, guys. I think it's because you have me as GL.
No, I changed it to Denise.
Just turn your screen on camera.
I am.
Bottom
You don't have
left.
the option to do that, John.
Thought it was the bottom left. It tells you you can turn.
Yeah,
the
I
video.
know. And I have a mute, Joe.
All right, it doesn't say turn the video on.
No, it doesn't. I don't know why. This happened last time, too.
Let me try bringing you in a different way.
Yeah, bring me in, please.
Okay. She's here yet. So I know the last time we left, we had a levy issue. And hopefully Tom Haley's on, can help go through these numbers with me, because I think I've got this levy issue resolved. It took a lot of work on my end to ensure that we could, come up with some alternatives for you to consider. So I'm going to go through what I have come up with. So we needed about $1.3 million. And I'm gonna tell you how I got there. So last meeting, the budget committee actually did this, I believe. You took a cut on the OPEB of 100,000. So I don't, Tom, can you confirm that?
Yes, we did. If he can't, we did.
Yeah, I can't because I missed that part, I think.
Okay.
Yes, we did.
All right.
Okay.
So a new item tonight is I'm going to add $100,000 as additional non-tax revenue. I'm not sure exactly where it's going to be, but there'll be another $100,000 worth of revenue coming in as non-taxable. I'll go through and I'll plug it into every line item account that I can find it. And I'm sure we'll make it. I'm sure it will be there next year. I'm just not sure exactly what accounts it's going to be in. So we had $500,000 in proposed to be taken out of the general fund. And there's currently a little better than $600 to use. So I would suggest taking another $100,000. So that's a $300,000 swing there.
So what's the total you're suggesting that we take?
That's 600,000 in total.
Okay.
All right. So these I will suggest to the town council as well, and pretty sure I can get support for these.
I agree.
We will find paving, $375,000. I'm pretty sure, as far as being able to utilize it out of some of this federal money, that we'll probably be able to find to do it. So I'm suggesting we take that number out of the budget as well. I'm suggesting there is $115,000 in capital for the town. 100,000 of it is for the pumper ladder and 50,000 for library. Because this is a 10-year process, I'm asking for you to leave $50,000 in voters to approve a 10-year payment plan. We'll take the other $50,000 from either the gaming money or from we'll find the other 50,000. We will find it.
Chris, it's 500,000.
No, that's the school capital.
Oh, all right, all right, all right.
And I would say we'll find the money for the library capital as well. So there's a $65,000 reduction there. And while this is not going to be a popular move, I'm asking you to remove all the school capital, $557,500. And the rationale behind that is there is approximately $800,000 sitting in the wings since December. There's another 1.7 million coming in from the federal government. There's also monies that's sitting in the gaming reserve account that will be earmarked partially for the schools. Once that committee gets going, the has never said that money would not be earmarked for the schools. So there is, what I'm saying is there are other avenues to fund this capital other than asking taxpayers to tax for it. Altogether, that's $1,322,000. That brings the levy down to 4%, actually 3.99. It brings a tax decrease to 9.22, bringing the tax rate from $16.20 to $14.71. The town side of this budget would have an increase of 0.9%.
Joe, can I say
The
something?
school here is 1.1%. It fully funds the school at the maximum of 4% allowed by law that they can ask for an increase by due to the state aid issue. So I know it's not a very popular budget, but in all reality, I think the town has done an extremely diligent job trying to get through this budget to get to something that is workable. We have taken a number of hits on our side. We will continue to take them. We took all the hits from last year. It fully funds the school at the maximum allowed by law at 4%, and it gives a 9% tax decrease. And we're at level where we don't need to ask the state for permission to exceed the cap. So I know that, you still have work to do. You still want to go through this. I'm not saying you shouldn't. There are a number of things that are going to come up as to whether or not this is permissible by law. I've gone through the educational laws about the 4%. I know the issue of exceeding the tax cap levy that, I've worked with the Office of Municipal Finance on this. I've done it in the past. It's possible to do it, but we're asking the taxpayers to pay more in taxes when there's not a need to. So, there's $800,000 that came out of the Trump administration sitting there for education that has not been utilized. That in all likelihood, they should have done what we've been doing to maximize the amount of ability to reimburse COVID-related expenditures, leaving a general fund surplus available to offset their budget for next year. There's another 1.7 million coming in between this May and next May for school education expenses related to COVID. I can't, explain enough that, when this was passed by the Trump administration, it was clearly for the reopening of schools. It's not for, that there's no guidance out there. There's plenty of guidance out there to spend this money. It needs to be utilized so that the general fund revenues, which would have no strings attached, would be available in their budget for next year. And they would still get the
1 minute before we go any further. So Denise, you had a question?
No, I don't have a question. I'm just gonna say that Chris has put so much work into this, and we know how intelligent he is about numbers right now. And he's showed me all these numbers, discussed all these numbers with me. Not that the town council has approved what he's suggesting at this point, but I do know my town council, and they want to do everything we can to help decrease taxes. So I think Chris has come up with a really good solution. And I think it would be fair to all if we do this.
I'll ask any of the members have questions, or is there anything you don't understand with Thor and Sherry? Thor?
Yeah, Chris, what is the paving line item you're referencing, by the way?
So paving the DPW budget. So it's on page, my glasses. It's on page 12, I believe.
Yes.
All right.
So under operating, there's paving line, putting paving in this year's budget.
I got it. Okay, thank you. And so my another question is, so your proposal is to take all the 15K from the library capital, right?
I believe ultimately we will be able to fund that with the federal money coming in.
Okay, and that's also your idea to support with federal money coming in to also supplement the fire truck, possibly even
so that
more.
would either be federal money or it would be gaming money that is sitting in reserve waiting to be utilized. That
right.
will be allocated.
And is your idea also maybe to provide money back into the paving budget with either one of those two resources as well?
Yes, it would be.
And Denise, is your idea, is your gut feeling for the town council that they would be willing to support pushing for that support of that alternative and solution when that happens as well?
It's just my gut feeling, guys, but this town council has been very committed in trying to help everyone to get to a point where the taxpayers are not paying over 4%. I talked to the council about this in the past. We've had several budget workshops. I know their confidence in Chris is very high. And I know that if Chris suggested this, I do have a gut feeling the council will go for this, because it's the town council's objective right from the beginning to do everything we can do to support the school budget also. And that's why we took our capital out. That's why we did several other things. And this isn't going to hurt us. We are finding, Chris is finding alternate measures so that we can support what will keep the town going. I got feeling that they'll go for it. I've been wrong in the past, but I think they will.
Because my biggest concern is we do these things, which certainly Chris has made some extremely deep sacrifices on the part of the municipal budget to offer these alternatives. So I would like to see that those things get compensated for if we do get money, and including support for using the casino capital, particularly if it gets reimbursed, but even the casino capital that's in there when we push for that committee to start talking about that. But I also am really concerned about the school needing some of that capital to support some of their capital expenditures. While we may not be able to support it to provide a 4%, to provide a budget that supports the 4% cap, that really allows us to support the school that it, in a way that it needs to be supported this next year when we do get those funds. So
Right.
it's kind of like a promise. It's kind of like a promissory note, but we don't really have a way to do that. So it just, everybody still needs to have some verbal confirmation that we're on board so that the public understands that that's what we're saying. And that's what everybody is sort of committing themselves to with good faith, that if things come through the way we hope, that's what we want to do.
So be clear with your thought, this federal money that's coming in, the guidance came out and it's just generic guidance. There is no specific guidance to it at the moment.
Yeah.
One thing that is crystal clear in it, that there is a recovery of lost revenues. That the issue is they can't use it to offset taxes. So the fact of cutting these things out of the budget because of lost revenues is justification to actually read the issue that we cut. It's not in your tax base, so it's not supplanting your budget. The fact that we cut it out meant that we couldn't afford it because of the lost revenue. So I have no qualm in the fact that some of these issues, while they will be difficult to justify the government, we will get through what we need to do to get these things funded properly.
And who will have the power to spend that money when it comes in?
So my understanding is that these monies will come in some to a community development block that the schools will have clear authority to expend on their own for the monies that they get. They're 1.7 million, and the town, I believe it will be the town council, will have the ability to expend it like it would be a grant. And obviously, my suggestion, and I believe the majority of the council's suggestion at this point, will be to follow the guidance that's out there, to have some roundtable discussions publicly about how these funds would be utilized. And they should be one time, very similar to what you've said when we talked about the gaming before. These should not be buried into a budget. They should be for one-time issues that, will help us move this town forward, that, so we don't wind up creating a structural deficit in the future.
And is there, one last question, I'm sorry, but is there, if there's a surplus of these monies that, hard to believe, but above the amounts that we're looking at cutting right now, can that go back into the general fund?
No.
So we have to spend them.
We'll have to expend them very small. That's my understanding right now. There is still tons of guidance being drafted. There's going to be fields of guidance, but they won't let you put it back in your general fund to offset taxes with. That's what they'll consider it to be.
So we could, if for example, we needed to spend an extra 100,000 or so to support pay down of the fire truck or something like that.
Right, because we took it out of the budget, we'd be able to do it.
All right. Thank you very much for your answers.
Denise.
I just want to make it clear.
Go ahead.
I just want to make it clear. I am telling what I think the council will vote for, but I'm pretty confident in this because of the way that these budget hearings have been going. And we have really tried to take every amount of money we can and take it away from taxing people. So I don't see that this will go any other way. I mean, if it makes you feel more comfortable, I could call a meeting before your meeting next Thursday.
Well, I don't mean to be rude, but we're going to make that recommendation to the town. So regardless of whether the council votes for it or not, we still have to.
Absolutely, Joe. But I think
I honestly just say, I've watched the council and they have confidence in Chris's budget. And so I don't think it's going to be a problem with your council members. Just my personal opinion.
Right. And it's my personal opinion too. And if you've all watched the budget committee meeting, the budget meetings that we've had, we have really, Chris, the counselor, we have really tried to find every bit of money that we can spend that we have somewhere.
We appreciate it.
And that's what we're doing.
I got to tell you, I really do appreciate the effort the council's made this year. And And the fact that you came to the budget committee last year with some more cuts at the end when we found out, we really had to make. I think this year, I believe this budget committee has worked like a well-oiled machine, in my opinion. We haven't agreed on everything, but we've really knocked the work out quickly and efficiently. So, and it's been because we've had a lot of good help.
So with those cuts, and I think there's one more I failed to mention, because it's an insurance cut of $25,000, because the police department did get accredited and finished that process and was certified, we are receiving a $25,000 reduction in our insurance for liability. That's another cut that we can make.
That was the accreditation.
Yep. So, it was a lot of work to put that accreditation together, but they've, the town will enjoy a reduction in insurance because they look at them to be a more professional staff now, that they follow protocols, have, the appropriate policies, procedures, training, all the things you need to be accredited.
You and John.
So on that vein, Mr. Administrator, do we need to increase any items in the salary budget? I know the contractual piece was that once we got accredited, there was going to be a bump to some of the members of the staff for getting that process completed. So do we need to alter any of those numbers?
We are in the middle of negotiations right now. I don't want to.
Under the current contract,
they're meeting tonight.
Yeah, not what you guys are proposing, but I mean under the current contract, is there the escalators? I believe there was one for the for the dispatchers.
Right.
Okay. So you guys will make that alteration. Yeah. I just want to mention it.
Yeah, John, we're in the middle of negotiations right now. We're discussing all of that, and we're trying to fix that also. So, I do have to tell you, police negotiations are going very well, and police, I have to give them credit. They're trying to really compromise with us, and because they realize what we're going through with the budget, and I have to give them credit for helping for working with us right now. It's not always been pleasant, but in my experience, negotiations aren't pleasant, but it's been going pretty well right now.
So we believe we have enough money in the council contingency to deal with what we're dealing with negotiations.
Yes.
John.
So one follow-up question, Mr. Chair, because obviously we're talking about a number of cuts and a way to get to the school being, fully funded at that 4% number. The question I have is, we received this communication today from the school committee indicating that they're looking for $33.9 million. And I just want to know if now we're talking about that or if that's a lighter line item that we're going to discuss this. But, it's evident that the town has done everything on their side to make up the shortfall, but it doesn't seem like the school committee is participating in this process.
I mean, we can't make them do anything.
Yeah. I was under the assumption that somebody was going to come from the school committee tonight to talk to us about where they're at.
I believe
I think somebody is.
Let me mention, item 6 was discussion, presentation of current general fund numbers and revenue updates. I think we've been covering it.
Can I ask my questions real quick before we do that?
No, I'm saying it seems like we merged the two items. So.
That actually was supposed to just be an update. The sheet that I sent out from Denise Surratt, that was just like an update of the numbers that you all got, if there were any questions about it.
Do we want to have Denise perhaps come and speak with us at the next meeting?
I put her on for tonight, but I mean, I spoke with her.
Yeah.
If you look at the information that she sent to us, I think she was going to be available. I don't know if she's in the waiting room. But yep, there she is. So you all have the sheet that I emailed with the agenda. There, Denise is here.
Thor?
Yeah, just a question. Do we need to have a different agenda item on a different meeting to talk about Chris's, Mr. Cotta's suggestions? Is that a vote item that we can do tonight on some of those issues for reductions? So we can get that information to Tom Haley so we can updated information.
Number 5, we talk about want to revisit reductions. So, I mean, anything, if we don't feel comfortable, we'll finalize the votes next meeting, but we should at least have a list of them. I think he gave us some information, and hopefully he can forward us what he has, and then we'll put it on the next agenda.
Okay. I was just to see if we wanted to talk, if there was a possibility to talk about those things tonight, if people were feeling comfortable, unless people want to mull over them for the next meeting.
Well, I was hoping to have a good list for the next meeting of anything else that anybody has looked over, but I mean, I'd get below 4%. I don't know how we can do it, but it's just wishful thinking, maybe.
I still have a couple of questions that I didn't get to ask.
Sherry?
So I don't know, before we have Denise come in, and also I think that I think Jerry Larkin is also in the waiting room waiting to be admitted to answer questions. Anyway, so I just wanted to see real quick, Chris, I had sent you an email, but I don't, for the financing of the fire truck over 10 years, you said put it out to the people. Are we going to put that as a resolution for the people to vote on, and we're going to put 50,000 into capital for that, or do we just do it like I didn't know how we were going to do that.
So I would put it in as capital under the budget. It's 50,000, 10-year, $100,000 payment.
Okay.
And the town can opt, after that's approved by the people, to either take money out of gaming. It could get out, put it in time payments. It could do, could tax for it. It could do a number of different things. But I think the people should vote on taking a 10-year payment for a very major piece of equipment that this town desperately needs.
Right.
We could not, there's not enough money in all the federal money that we have to make a single, it's not for capital purchases of this nature. This would be something we would put on time payment anyhow. It would never be justifiable to put it through the federal on the new money coming, because we would never buy a piece of equipment in 1 year for $1 million. We just wouldn't.
Right. Well, I mean, I didn't phrase what I was asking the last time. I was basically not asking to pay for the entire fire truck, but wondering if any of the monies for the fire truck, if there was a way to use some of the casino funds for like a down payment, but that's fine. I think what you've come up with is a good idea. Okay. The other question I have is this 1.7 million that you're referencing, they gave a rough estimate of what was coming to Newport County in an article. So is this
No, this should be a direct link to the schools through education.
Okay.
I had Jack Reed in here, and he explained to me, and I've also spoken to David Cicilline and White House's staff about the amount of monies. And the one piece I don't know, there is a Newport County that the town will be getting, and not education.
Okay. Well, that's what I was wondering. So that's a separate amount that we don't know what it's going to be yet.
There is a direct correlation of $5 million to the town.
Okay. And
then the piece that's coming out of the Newport County, I don't know exactly what that would be.
Okay.
So that reference, Chris, was like 15 million to Newport County. So it's allocated by population or something, do you think?
I believe it's going to be based on population.
Okay.
I haven't seen the formula for it, but there may be like a minor carve out for some impoverished people in Newport. You know, they may have more like CBDG allocation than we would get based on population, which is, you know, it's a formulary that the feds use. We'll receive whatever that allocation is. I just don't know what that allocation is at the moment.
And you suspect the restriction on that will be the same, that it needs to be spent?
It will be.
Okay.
It's coming out of the same pocket of monies. It's just carved up differently because a lot of states only have counties. So that's why they did that. And so we have we will figure out how to get that allocation properly. So I'm suspecting that the town will get somewhere around 4.5, somewhere in there altogether. And it's over a 2-year period.
and then the last question I had, and with this scenario, I just want to make sure that what you were saying, that's funding the school at the 32 million that they requested from us.
32,500,000 and whatever the
Right, whatever their
is
number
for
was,
it
their
was.
original number that the school committee submitted
Correct.
as their number they were requesting from us originally.
Correct.
And they have not notified you that they're changing that number.
So I
There.
just gave Joe and I don't know who got the email today.
Yeah,
whether-
they sent an email out to all of us. I forwarded it to the entire committee. I didn't realize that was actually signed by the school committee chair. And so it was a little surprising to me that went out, because it's a different, I mean, obviously, we're trying to find every dime we can in the budget, and that is, not going to help, and I realize I watched the school committee meeting. I know what they said they're facing as well, but we do have to we do have to figure out how to help the whole town. And
Okay.
anyway,
I didn't see the school committee meeting myself, so.
okay, so I just didn't know whether or not they had sent you something new today.
I just got the same email you did.
Okay.
All right, look. I want to ask, well, Denise, please be quick if you had something you had to say. But
It's okay. It's okay,
Okay,
Joe.
just-
Thank you.
all right, I want to ask if everybody received Sherry's email, revenue updates. Were there any questions on it? Just was item 6, discussion, presentation, current unrestricted general fund number and revenue update. So we have Denise Surratt, who has joined us, our treasurer. If there's any questions for her. Everybody understood the revenue estimates? Thank you for coming, Denise Surratt. Is there anything you'd like to add to our conversation, Denise? Is she in the house?
But wait a minute, I have a quick question.
Okay.
Tom Haley.
I'm just trying to pull up the document. There is one item that talks about gaining revenue to date. Is that going to show up on our revenue spreadsheet or not?
Well, that is in a restricted special revenue fund based on the ordinance. So that is what we've collected to date this fiscal year.
Yeah. So it's in our revenue sheet, it's a 0.
Right.
Not because it's restricted.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Sherry.
Yep, and this question is not as much for Denise as it is for Chris. Chris, were you able to find out anything about the resolution and whether we can pull back any of those open space funds?
So I'm still working on that. I believe that we may be able to pull about $50,000 from last year.
Okay.
I'm not so sure how far back we can actually go. I think once it's been established and it's been transferred, it's a legal matter as to whether or not we can pull it.
Okay.
The fact that we did it this year and we can still pull it back, I think that we can put it in the general fund. I'm waiting on the solicitor to give me an opinion as to how far back we could actually go.
Okay. Thank you.
Can we at least, Chris, stop that process though?
We are stopping it.
Okay, thank you.
It was supposed to be by resolve every year, if I understood correctly, right? So
the only thing I don't know is there was an original amount before it was moved up to 60%. We're still trying to find the language on that to see if that, I think it was 10% or something like that, that was originally taken, and if that was in perpetuity. Or if it's just by state law.
And then I think Donna Cook had said she put forward the resolution that passed that moved it down to 10%. So it was reduced to 10%.
Okay.
And that's what I think it's been at,
Okay.
even for the years that the resolution now has not been in place. Because I think when I looked back, pretty sure that when I began, it was my first year on the budget committee, that we removed that resolution. So it's been 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd prefer to be putting money into open space. I really think it's a dollar value, but just my opinion. All right. So any other questions for our treasurer? Okay. The item 7 was possible vote on the acceptance of revenue. So we want to accept these numbers tonight and have these be our final numbers? Is that what the question is?
It wasn't sure whether we were to a point where we could really vote on that, but you know, we were talking about that we have to accept the revenue. So that was another question for Chris. So
We have a little side note that says, ask Chris.
So,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. I would say that, you know, like I said, the revenue numbers are okay. I'll give you the adjustment for that, for the additional 100,000, plus we take another 100,000 from the general fund reserve.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'll give you those numbers by tomorrow. I'll work with Tom Haley about reconciling these numbers for you to make sure that we're all on the same page.
All right, so we'll hold that for the next meeting then.
So I'll make a motion to move item 7 to a future agenda
Next meeting.
or next meeting.
Next
Yeah.
meeting. Yeah.
I'll second.
The motion a second. You have unanimous consent? All right. No more discussion. Motion carries. All right. Is there anything else before we wrap up? All right. We're going to move on to number 8. We're going to thank the treasurer, Denise, for joining us. All right. So we had discussion, possible vote on account 8790, beaches, page 16. It's interesting. I don't have a page 16.
Either.
What was the account number again?
8790.
8790.
Okay, there it is.
Yeah, it's on page 16, Joe.
I got it.
Yeah, I
I'd
don't
like
have a
to make a
16.
motion.
Okay,
that-
family.
I'm gonna beat you, John. I'd like to make a motion that we approve 48,300 for beaches.
Second.
Question. Is this money covered by fees?
Yes,
All of this money's covered by fees?
yes.
All right, so I thought it was. I just wanted to make that point then.
And then some.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Assume we have unanimous consent. Discussion, motion carries. Okay, we were at number 9. Discussion, possible final vote on account 8830, summer recreation, page 16.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for 23,000 for account 8830.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I just have a quick question. Are we
Yeah,
at discussion?
second.
Oh,
We
Mike
have a
Janet
motion and a
seconded
second.
it.
Sherry?
I just wanted to know. So, Chris, we're sure that these camps are going to be open now.
So we believe from the guidance from the Department of Health, we can actually open the camps. The issue we're having now is trying to find help. Believe it or not, it has been the past 2 weeks, we have been beating the bush trying to get either lifeguards, camp counselors, gate attendants. It's been very, very difficult to find help. But we plan on opening camps, so we will try to get it done.
Unfortunately, my daughters are too young to work for the town.
And
Is it
make
just-
note that
Yeah, it's a little bit.
Give them like 14, 15
7:39,
years.
Secretary Schramm and Dave Perry arrived.
Copy that.
All right, we had a motion, we had a second. Do we have unanimous consent? Discussion? Motion carries. All right, we have discussion of possible final vote on account 6690, formerly XXXX, of special evening, winter recreation, page 16.
Chair, I'll make a motion for 1,500 for account 6690.
Second,
We have a second.
second,
We have unanimous consent for discussion. Motion carries. Discussion, possible final vote on grant total of Parks and Recreations, page 16.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for 72,800.
second.
So this was a grant that we received
No,
again.
it's supposed to be grand total.
Yeah, it's grand total.
Grand.
It's
G-
a typo on the
Grand.
agenda.
yeah, GRAN,
Oh my
grand
God.
total.
Thank God it's the last
I gotta get my
time.
printer to print this. Look at how small this is. I gotta figure out how to make my printer make things bigger for me. Or get a magnifying glass.
You're
Okay.
getting old now, Joe. You can't read that little.
We had a motion, we had a second. We have unanimous consent. Okay. For discussion, motion carries. All right, discussion. Possible final vote on account 3330 SRO, school share offset, page 68. That's the school resource officer.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for negative 62,000.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah,
So I know that the school committee has repeatedly said that they plan to cut this. I think that would be a very poor decision on their choice. And it's something that goes back decades.
I think
Or-
they
or-
actually put it back in because I had
Okay.
emailed
Yes, they
Sanquioni
did.
about that.
They did.
All right, I will hold my discussion.
So does that mean that we have to do something different with this,
No,
Denise? No, okay,
no, this is our share,
okay.
right, Chris?
Yes.
Okay.
all right. This is not something that's paid for by grants or anything. This comes
No.
out of our pocket. We have a motion, we have a second. Do we have unanimous consent? Further discussion? Motion carries. Discussion possible final vote on capital, on any capital, revotes and grand total municipal capital. So do we have any capital that we need to remove by vote? John?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to change account 89 or 0980 to 50,000.
That was the fire truck.
Correct. It's the only line item in there.
Yep.
Per our discussion, just to keep Mr. Perry in the loop, the town is going to find the other 50,000 for this year in current numbers.
I'll second.
And for Sherry's edification, I would leave it just like it is, estimated $900,000 over 10 years, so that people know what it is they're voting on.
Yeah.
But the taxpayers are paying 50,000 of it, and the town council will.
And at the public, I know there's a hearing before the FTR, there's a public forum for the budget. We can fully explain then what's happening with this.
Yep.
Good. Okay, we had a motion. We have a second. Do we have unanimous consent? Oh, Thor, you had something? Or-
No, just verify second.
Okay, we had a motion, a second. We have unanimous consent. Is there any further discussion? Motion carries. All right, 14.
No, you're not done yet, I don't think. You get the library capital, 15,000 you need to reduce?
I didn't think we put any capital into the library.
Yeah, there was 15, well, unless you cut it.
No, it's there.
But we didn't vote on capital for the library.
No, but it's
It's-
still in there as a request.
Okay, I got you. So you think we should, all right, I got you. We got to make,
We'll find it for them. We'll do what we can to find it for them.
I'd like to make a motion that we reduce library capital request under capital improvement to 0.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. We have unanimous consent. Is there any further discussion?
Now we
Motion
need a new
carries.
total on
No.
No,
capital.
not done.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to reduce capital improvement subtotal from 572,500 to 0. which would result in the elimination of library capital request that we just voted on, and then the elimination of the school department capital request.
So there would be no capital requests recommended by the budget.
As per the discussion that we just had with the administrator.
Of 50,000 for the fire truck.
Right.
Correct. That's in a separate area.
Okay.
This is on capital improvement as a whole. So
John,
the total,
just watching.
the total for all capital will be 50,000 for this year.
I'll second that.
We had a motion, we had a second. Do you have unanimous consent?
So you still have time payments, so it's not, you've got another $170,000 in time payments.
Correct. This is just for the capital improvement subtotal.
All right. Okay.
Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, who seconded that?
I did.
Mr. Perry did, I believe.
I did. Yeah.
Okay. Are we all set? We have unanimous consent? No further discussion? Okay, the motion carries. All right, are we finished?
Nope, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion for a grand total municipal capital of $220,140, which represents the elimination of the items we just discussed and the reduction of the fire truck to 50,000.
Second.
And includes all of the time payments that we had previously approved.
Second.
Second. We have unanimous.
Was that number 220,140?
Yes.
Correct.
All right.
I'm sorry, can you just repeat that? It's getting choppy.
220,140.
Choppy.
220,140. That's grand total municipal capital.
So Joe, that's 170,140 for the recurring time payments and $50,000 for the fire truck.
Yep. So we're all set. We have unanimous consent. Further discussion? Okay, the motion carries. We are now done with 13, correct?
Correct.
Right. Glad you guys keep me straight. Discussion and questions. Possible final vote on school town appropriation, page 16. So do we have Jerry?
You do. Hang on.
Welcome the chairman of our school committee, Jerry Larkin. Okay.
Hey.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, Jerry, we asked you to come in and if you had any updates, any good news or whatever news you have for us. So we'll give you a few minutes to start off if you'd like, and then we'll move on to our vote.
So yeah, I can sort of work through how we got where we got in the short term. So our appropriation in FY21 was $32.1 million. However, our operating budget was 33.2, and that was with a cut of 24.2 full-time equivalents from our staff, making us really strapped, but that's what was required to close the books because we got level funding. We were able to make up that structural deficit of about 1.1 million with $675,000 from Medicaid money and $400,000 from our reserve fund. So the request that we voted last Tuesday or the night before last was for a 32.5. That's the maximum that we're allowed to require or request from the budget committee under the statute. So that's kind of where that number is. What I think people may have some questions about was what was the issue with the resolution, and that is that we have that structural deficit of about $1.1 million, as well as a decrease in state aid of $605,000 anticipated for FY22. So that's where we get the number to 33.9 as a actual operating budget to not make any more cuts in our staffing. So, you know, that needed to be out there. That's what happens if that's that's how we maintain what we have been able to offer this year in terms of the education. Not sure if there's other questions I can answer. Our state aid last year was 7.4 million. As I said, it's going down by about $605,000. That, you know, the one question that has come up a lot is the funding formula. The funding formula is principally driven by 3 or 4 different parameters. One of them is the real property value of the town, and that is based on property valuations from, I believe, 2019. The second is the median income that has gone up in Tiverton. The third is the percentage of students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch. And then the fourth is the total enrollment. Our enrollment is down a little bit this year as a result of COVID. So patients, you can tell me on the line of work, parents holding their kids at home. We've actually been held harmless, if that's the right term, with regard to that and calculating the formula. The real issue is actually that property values went up in Tiverton and median income went up in Tiverton. Our enrollment's actually relatively stable, as is our percentage of students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch. So that's why the state aid went down. There's only one entity that actually can change that, and that's the legislature. It is a very objective formula. Complicated, but it's objective. So I don't know if I had asked if there were other questions that I could answer to get them beforehand. I didn't get any, but I'll do my best if there are other questions on the part of the budget committee.
Questions by the budget committee? John?
So I have one, Dr. Larkin. I had asked the finance director for a trailing 5-year budget to actuals, which she was kind enough to send over. And then I'd also asked for year to date. And in that process, she included in the FY21 year to date, she included FY20 as a reference point. And 50% of those account budget numbers were different between those two documents. And I was wondering if you could help me understand that, because I was unable to get an answer directly from the finance director.
Not without having, John, not without having the, I'd have to go look at the detail, and obviously I can't do that in real time right now.
I'd be happy to share with you. I sent a list of all the budget items that were different. And just so you understand, the purpose of that exercise was for me to, understand how the school department has done budgeting over the, the past, however many years, 5 years, right? Whether or not those budget numbers are accurate. Because in our first discussion, we had a number of questions, or at least I had a number of questions as to actual spend on certain items versus what the forecast budget number was. The other item that I had asked for, and I have not received any communications back, was what items within the budget are nailed down by a contract. Specifically, what areas do we have? Is there flexibility for the school department to find some savings?
Very little.
It's so for the purposes of this discussion or future discussions, I think it would be helpful to have that information to know specifically what line items are contractual versus which items are not. And I know which those are.
I can answer. So what is contractual? The biggest part of our entire budget, and in fact, it's not the tail that wags the dog, it's the dog, are our contracts with NEA and our contracts with Council 94. And those are negotiated every 3 years. They are subject to public disclosure is not the right word. So before we actually can approve a contract, we have to do a financial impact statement. Those statements are done. Council 94 and both of them are actually up in that. So we are approaching the end of our contract year for the NEA, which is clearly the biggest one, which is, it should be. That's what we do, is we teach, and that's all the teachers. Council 94 will be up, I think, the year after that. And so those are, as you put it, nailed down. What are the other things that are nailed down? Transportation. So if I can editorialize a little bit about that one, there's essentially a monopoly on transportation. We get one company bidding. There are two companies in Rhode Island. That's another thing that we've actually asked the legislature to address, is the fact that there's the appearance almost of collusion, if not actual collusion, between the two companies, because they, one company bids in some communities and the other company bids in the other communities. They do not actually compete with each other. And so we saw something like a 10% rise in our transportation costs with the latest contract. Energy is also a contract issue. And of course, healthcare, those are other, those are contractual or statutory obligations. Everything else is really very marginal. And we cut every account to the bone that we could last fiscal year. And that's why we're sort of not really in a position, as you put it, to come to the table with more cuts. We don't have any other cuts. The other important thing to understand is that because those contracts are made every 3 years, we were obliged to the increases in the contracts really negotiated in 2018 in terms of the NEA, when we had to sort of take zero last year. And I think it's important to understand, as a way of coming to the table, the school committee by the charter has the authority to place a budget before the voters of our own making, within the statutes, of course. And we intentionally chose not to do that because we felt there was too much unknown last August. The whole referendum had been pushed. It was really unclear what was going to happen financially. It was unclear what was going to happen with the casino. It was obviously unclear what was going to happen epidemiologically. So it didn't seem the time, certainly, to try and get, even though it was going to cause some problems. Every extra dime we've had, I would say, we have put into COVID mitigation and ensuring that education continued in a meaningful way for our students. What did that mean? It meant cleaning the schools. It meant doing remote learning. It meant ensuring that meals and lunch were available to families that actually had no other source. It meant extending our one-to-one, which actually, it looks like it was, Nostradamus-like, that we actually went to one-to-one. And what that means is that every child, every student, 5 through 12, had a laptop device in order to, to sort of structure their education. We did that in January. That was out of our capital. And it happened that COVID hit in March. Well, what happened in March? We had to then extend that down through into kindergarten. It meant actually working with our internet service providers to ensure that students had access, because not every family has access. It meant professional development. So that's how we came to the table.
So just a quick question on that, Dr. Larkin. Given that the one-to-one piece was pushed forward because, and rightly so, was pushed forward because of COVID, would those expenses not be reimbursable out of the the COVID monies? And I know, as the administrator said already, there's another 800,000 and then 1.7 coming to the school department. I'm just curious as to why that item.
So the answer to ESSER 1 is, the answer was no, as far as we could tell. ESSER 2, it is still unknown. I'm personally more optimistic. So what happens with ESSER 2? It has actually very specific buckets that you can expend the money in. So 20% has to go to learning loss. And then the other sort of categories of expenditures that you can apply for. And again, you know, we're thinking of this as money in the bank, but it's not really. It's money that we have to apply for. We have to have a plan for. It's not just turned over to us by RIDE. So it has to go to curriculum development, teacher training, social and emotional support programs, staffing to address learning loss, and COVID mitigation. Okay, well, I bet a lawyer could get a truck through that. But we don't know how specific, you know, again, as I said, I'm personally getting more optimistic in that we will be able to use that money to cover costs. What will that do, however, you know, long term, if we are using that money for expenses which are actually operational, meaning that, you know, if we say, well, okay, we have to lay off a guidance counselor, but a guidance counselor supports emotional, social and emotional support programs. So we can, you know, fund that position out of ESSER 2, or the school resource officer, which I have to note, the school committee has always been behind. Frankly, I was actually with Mrs. Black, the person that brought that forward in 2012 after Sandy Hook. So be that as it may, that is still creating an additional structural deficit in our budget. You know, can you live with a structural deficit for a year? Yeah. We certainly lived through FY21 with a structural deficit. And, but we have to, you know, the coming back to the issue of, we chose not to put before the voters a budget that would cover our salary increases and our COVID increases and everything else. You know, the expectation is that you have to make that up somehow eventually. And so that's, I think, if you really want to get at or understand what is the signing statement, if you will, about the letter. And again, the letter comes because it has to come. You know, we have the date of May 15th to give our final number to you guys. We knew that you were actually having this meeting and voting tonight, so that's why we sent it today. Even though, you know, it's a few days early, a couple days early. But you know, there is that structural deficit there, and that's what that you know, resolution, if you will, is addressing.
As the
one last issue, if I can. So, you know, in terms of budget to actuals, again, if you'd asked me a specific line item, I probably could have looked into that even this afternoon. I can't do that in real time. What I can say is that we are projected to come in within budget for the end of this year. And one of the things that you will see is there's always variance from year to year between a budget and its actuals. And there's also adjustments in line items as expenditures, you know, seem appropriate. One line item, and I'm not saying this is the cause for any discrepancies, or maybe, or that you saw, but things get moved between different line items because it seems a more appropriate place for them to be.
I just so I can expand on that, and again, I probably phrase it, you know, incorrectly, but just so you can understand, I will send you an email with this detail afterwards.
Okay.
It was, you know, for instance, and I'll just pick one. I don't even remember if this was the case, but, you know, for instance, you know, the trash contract, right, or the dumpster rental, you know, on one set of, you know, trailing 5-year budget to actuals, the number may have been 26,000. On the year to date, and including 20 as a reference, the budget item might have been, you know, 25,000. So you have that, you know, $1,000 differential, and that occurred in 50% of the accounts, which made it very difficult for me to understand, you know, how budgeting is actually gone and how performance of those budget items has actually gone. And, you know, my my personal opinion is that it's not appropriate, once a budget is set, it's not appropriate to alter the budget item. You can alter the actuals, that makes all the sense in the world, but we need to know where we started from in order to do, a side-to-side comparison year over year and understand where the cost drivers are. And that piece is.
If you want to look at the budgets, you can look at the Unified Chart of Accounts. That's freely available on the Rhode Island Department of Education. That actually goes into a lot of detail. Again, if there's a specific line item, I could try and go and look at that for you. I'm sure Deb Palish and Diane Farnworth, who are, our sort of titans on the finance committee for the school committee, can work through anything with you that you don't understand. And, luckily I don't have to take out the trash, so I can't address that particular issue.
I have two more questions, if that's all right with the committee, or I can pause and hold them.
Go.
Dave, get in a minute.
Let him go. John, keep going.
So
He was leaving.
So the next question is, some of these items, revenue items and funding formulas and that sort of thing. Has the school committee reached out to any members of the state delegation to address those concerns directly?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And then the final item I have, and by all means, Mr. Chair, stop me if this is inappropriate given the line item, but I think it pertains directly to some of the salaries that were contained in the administration line item within the budget. But it's my understanding that there's OMA or potential APRA requests out there, and I'm curious if you can speak to some of those and how they may impact some of those budget items.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. I just heard that there was a APRA request for specific votes from the school committee to increase administration salaries.
Every vote is reported out. Every vote is a matter of public record. So
okay,
I'm not sure who you're talking to or what they're saying, but they're probably misleading you.
Okay, I'll take that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So any other questions? Dave?
Dr. Locken, the updated school committee budget that came out yesterday or the day before. I got questions on two of the pages. One of them is in the back. It says one time, bringing the school department budget to $33,981,000 will provide the base to retain staff and fix a long-standing underfunding. This one-time fix will allow for future budget requests to be more modest and in line with the cost of living increases. I know you don't have a crystal ball, and neither do we. So you're telling me that next year, or this is telling me that next year, the budget requests might be less than $33 million? You can't tell us that.
No, of course not.
And I can't tell you that either. So why was this?
Would I?
This is nothing for me. Does nothing for me.
Well,
and the other thing is, if we were to approve $33,981,041, and next year we wanted to zero fund you, it would have to be another $33,981,042 instead of 041. So there would be another large increase in the budget. My second question to you is, before that,
I appreciate the statement.
Has 0% increase in what the deficit would be, and another $986,000 in cuts. 5 middle school teachers, another 5 middle school teachers, another 4 high school teachers, total of 21.6 FTEs, full-time employees, I assume. Or considering closing an elementary school. This town would be in an uproar if we were to close, if you were to close, not us, if you were to close an elementary school that was still paying bonds on that school. And you're telling us that you're going to close it? My God. Got to be a better way. Got to be a better way.
I
So
don't hear
I
any solutions, Joe. I don't hear any solutions, Dave. From you.
I'd like to sit down and show you some cuts.
Send them along.
Okay. Invite me up.
Invite you up? No, you don't need an invitation. You have my email, you have the superintendents, you have the rest of the school committees. You know, maybe actually I encourage you to do is sit down with our finance subcommittee, Deb and Diane. I'm sure they'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Harry? Harry.
Dr. Larkin.
Yep. Hey, sure.
Okay, so my question is that so I'm sure you heard me earlier. I did watch. So you guys did not actually, because the 32,506,856 is the highest number you're allowed to ask for by the law, right?
Right.
So you guys did not vote to change your number to the
No.
33 number.
What the, you know, again, what that was, and I guess maybe we didn't make that completely clear, is that, right, we cannot change our number under the law, or that, you know, that is the maximum number that we can request under the law. But that is the reality we're facing, is that our operating budget is gonna, you know, should be 33.9 million.
Okay, and the other question I had was, have the schools, been told anything about the 1.7 million that's coming through?
So more or less, I think what you guys have been told, which is that that is the projected allocation. There is a process for that. Again, it has to be approved by RIDE. We have to kind of, you know, they're just not going to give it. They're going to ask for what the use is. As I said, I'm more optimistic than I was maybe a month ago in terms of our flexibility there. But it is not a done deal.
You guys have any idea when you'll be able to apply for those funds?
I'm anticipating that it's sometime in June.
Is that a 2-year fund
No.
support or 1 year?
You know, actually, no, I'm sorry, I misspoke. I believe it can be distributed over 2 fiscal years, but I may be, yeah, I'm pretty sure it can be distributed over 2 fiscal years. What it doesn't seem to be able to do is use to backfill money that we spent this year trying to, you know, kind of keep the schools open. And I have to say, you know, again, one of the things, we were phenomenally successful in actually maintaining the quality of education for our students. We were acknowledged by the governor. One of our principals is principal of the year for Rhode Island. One of our teachers is teacher of the year, or finalist for teacher of the year for Rhode Island. We did, you know, an enormous amount of work, and it was very successful, not only in shifting really on a dime, and that really is the dedication of our teachers, of our administrators, and the leadership of our superintendent. We turned on a dime in March. We opened in September, first partially, and by early October completely. No other district in Rhode Island did that. None. There are districts in Massachusetts that are only opening this month, or only opened in the last month. Massachusetts, which is generally held up as a, you know, beacon of educational quality, but Tiverton did it better than they did. So that's what you got with the money that you spent.
You all say, Jerry?
Yeah.
So I just have one question, and you know, Dr. Larkin, maybe you can help me understand this, but the the federal money, that 800,000 and that 1.7 million that's supposed to be coming, it seems like there's a discrepancy between what was relayed to us by the administrator. I know the administrator's here, versus the depiction that you're giving of it. So I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around what the process is for that money. And I know Mr. Cotta is very diligent about his research. So I'm trying to put these together.
Yep. Maybe he has a better sense of how these things go. Maybe he's more optimistic than I am. Again, I'm more optimistic than I was a month ago in terms of how the ESSER money will be able to be used. But I know it's not in our account. I know Denise doesn't have it yet. And that there's a process that we need to go through.
Any of the members correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the town administrator said that the municipal side was an increase of 0.9%.
0.9 of 1%.
0.9 of 1%.
So 0.90%.
Okay.
Yes.
So I just wanted to point that out because you can understand why there might be a little, wondering why the school couldn't cut more. But I personally know, Jerry, what you're talking about. And also, when you talked about RIDE, I understand that everything our schools do has to be clear through RIDE. So, I mean, right down to,
Yeah, and it's not, it's not just, this is what we're going to do with the money and we need their approval. It's everything we do. One of the things to understand actually is by Rhode Island state law, by the Constitution, the ultimate school committee is actually the legislature. So they, tell us what we can do, how we can do it, when we can do it, to a large extent.
That I do know, and I've seen it over the years. I find that it's what's made education, I think, worse, but that's just my opinion. I think more local control is
definitely. We have a really long conversation about that.
Yeah, well, I just point out though that the town side really did.
I think one thing I would agree with you on, Joe,
in anticipation of trying to help the school.
More local control would be nice in a place like Tiverton. More local control I'm not going to name them. There are municipalities in the state where more local control has actually created disasters that the rest of the state is paying for.
You probably know better than I do. I'm sure you do, actually. Is there anybody else?
Put that up on my wall.
Dave.
Dr. Larkin, I know we were talking about money that's coming. Have we received any money for COVID so far?
As far as I understand, about $300,000 in ESSER one.
Then what are you doing with it? Ooh.
And what happened to that? Where is it?
That was all applied to COVID mitigation.
Well,
so,
I'm sorry.
Cleaning.
So that money was all spent already?
Yes. Well, it was spent and did not make us whole for all the expenses that we had in the spring, and then into the fall to open.
Okay. Is there, I did speak to your financial lady, and I thought she said that you were going to receive 2 more COVID-related money. One was from the Trump administration, and one was from the Biden administration. Is that true?
ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. And again, this is the sort of question that I probably could have given a better answer if I'd had it ahead of time. I do not know what, and maybe Chris, I think, is still here. If he knows anything more about the third relief package for local governments and cities, towns, and school districts. I guess that's not here anymore.
All right.
So can I just interject? The number is 427,845 that you guys received from the state of Rhode Island, correct? 194,599 on 9/4/2020, and then 233,246
I
on
would have to
11.
go back and confirm that for you.
Okay.
So John, I think the first number actually wasn't a benefit to them. I think they actually swapped money for them. So,
Oh, yeah. So some of the money was just a pass through of the
Right.
state aid. They didn't give us state aid. They said this is the state aid.
they it was a cute trick. It didn't do them
Yeah.
any good.
I think
But
that
the other 200,000 was a little bit more of an addition. That,
Yeah.
But that
Yeah,
was
so-
SR1. SR2 is still sitting out there and it can be applied for.
Yeah.
It's no,
No, that-
different than what we do at FEMA or any other thing. They were all from 133 that passed December. It is all for openings. It's all the code mitigation issues. It's plexiglass, computers, training, all of that is able to be applied for. You just apply.
and I'm optimistic more than I was again a month ago. But yeah, so the a large part of the initial disbursement, I'm not sure why we talk about the Trump administration and the Biden administration. It's all our money, actually, or money that we're going to have to pay in the future. So the initial disbursement, one of the things that the legislature did was they closed the state deficit by not actually funding most districts' state aid out of state revenues, but out of money from SR1, if that's the right term.
It is
And then we had additional money that actually went toward some of the mitigation that we had through the spring and fall.
Mike Janet.
Bit of it.
Yeah, my question is, were the committee to vote to fund at the lower value of lower amount, the school committee requested amount, is the ability there for the town to share funds that they might have access from another source, and I'm not going to identify what that is at this point, with the school committee, or is that division?
I'll call you right back.
So the federal appropriate.
That's right.
If
I
you're
don't
talking
really
about when it's coming,
I don't think on the school
the
budget.
most recent federal allocation that was cut and carved to allocate to education separately from municipal issues to stop that issue from happening.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit, Chris. I didn't catch
So
everything.
my understanding of the appropriation out of the federal government that's being down, that the municipalities, the state, local, and schools are all separately and independently, so that there would be no bleeding side to the other.
Okay, so you could not help the schools.
I don't think so at the moment, but I still haven't seen all the guidance on monies that we will be giving come at the end of May and next May as well.
Okay.
Except for capital.
Mike, all due respect, we did help the schools by taking all our capital away from the budget. So the money that we're using our capital reserve for and our COVID money is helping the schools because we're not taxing people for it. The town is doing the best we can, but I'm not saying we're financially great. There's going to be a lot of expenses coming up that we're going to have to try to figure out what to do with. But all due respect, we have helped the schools by doing what we did with our budget this year.
I acknowledge that.
And if I could echo, really what Denise is saying, we are really all in this together. And I appreciate those efforts that Chris and primarily, but, the council, all the department heads have made to try and keep everything, as streamlined as possible, if that's the right word. There is just so much uncertainty, and we had contracts that we had to meet. It certainly would have been an odd thing to be trying to ask our teachers to not get their contractual increases when we were asking them to sort of risk their lives, by coming back to school, and they all did.
Well, the same thing goes with us. Our police officers and firemen also risk their lives, and we're in the middle of negotiating.
I know, and I'm not minimizing anybody's willingness to try and work together or sacrifice them
At this point, I'm gonna
for all of us.
ask for a motion. I think we've, unless anybody has any new questions, that we haven't
I have
covered.
one.
Yeah.
You're gonna make a motion, right? Okay.
No,
Jim.
I have one.
We all have questions, so hold on.
Okay, keep it going. But let's try to, I want to move along and get to a vote this evening, so.
I just have one question. Can I ask a question real quick?
After you, Thor.
Please.
Dr. Larkin, do you feel comfortable with like an earmark for your capital expenses with some sort of understanding that with additional funds or with the funds in the casino revenue account that you feel comfortable getting those funds needed for the school for those capital expenditures? Do you feel comfortable understanding that?
I'm not sure I actually understand the question. I'm sorry.
So now that we've cleared your request for capital expenditures for the school, do you feel comfortable though that there's going to be an effort to refund those through either the reimbursements or through the through the additional funds we have available through casino funds?
I think so. If I understand the question correctly, do you mean if we had money through ESSER and could use that for some of the capital expenses that we would do that?
He didn't hear. Oh, okay. I thought.
Oh, maybe you weren't online, but so do you feel comfortable that the town council will make a decision to fund your capital requests for the school through the reimbursements we should get, or force through using the funds that we have available in the casino revenue fund account to make good on those requests?
Well,
you feel confident that that's going to happen?
I guess I'm still not clear on the question. I'm sorry.
So,
Dr. Larkin, we wiped out your capital expenditure in an earlier vote. We took that line item down to 0 with the understanding that the town council, when they put a process in place, would leverage the casino funds in order to take care of some of those capital expenditures.
I see. So I got on late, I guess. Do I feel comfortable? I guess it depends on whether or not they do it. I of course can only speak for myself, especially about something like that. I have faith in the goodwill of the council and of the administrator. Yeah.
That's my question. Do you have, I mean, we kind of have made that decision based on the good faith and understanding that that's what our intent would be. That's what our desire would be. So
I would say for me personally, and I would say for the committee in general, though, again, they could certainly speak for themselves. I feel like I've got a good working relationship with every member of the council, and I feel like I've got a good working relationship with our town administrator and with the president of the council.
Okay, thank you for that.
So Mr. Chair, I have
good job.
two questions. So question number one, is there any additional revenue sources? Like, for instance, the administrator mentioned FEMA on the town side. Is there FEMA money available beyond the 801.7 that we still have yet to go apply for?
I know we're applying for everything we can. If he knows of something that we're not applying for, please let us know. That's probably the best answer I can give you.
Okay. Question number two. When we last met, we talked about CapEx specifically, and I'm glad that Mr. Ackery brought this up because the discussion was around the dish pit in the high school. And I made the suggestion, the dishwasher in the high school, the replacement. And I made the suggestion to contact, for instance, Ecolab directly for a nominal monthly payment to have them replace it. did anything come of that? I mean, did you guys reach out? Because I noticed prior to us eliminating the CapEx, that item was still earmarked in there at the $55,000 number, and that made me slightly uncomfortable.
That's the kind of question if I could have had that before this meeting, I might have been able to give you a better answer. I have not discussed it personally with the superintendent or the business manager.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for 32,506,856 for total school expenses.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Can I make an amendment to that?
By all means.
I'd like to amend that number to 33,111,856. And what that does is puts the $605,000 that the state's not giving us back into it.
I don't think we can do that.
We've already done that.
It would exceed the cap, wouldn't it?
Yeah, with the
already making that up.
32,506,856 is at a 4% cap number.
That would put us
over the cap.
We already made that number up, David.
Well, I'm taking the 32,505,856. And I thought I heard Mr. Larkin say that the state cut us $605,000.
They did. That brings that number of 32 down by 600,000.
Right. So what I was trying to do is
that back up with other revenues elsewhere that we've generated. Bring them back to whole.
okay, I'll withdraw my motion.
And we're at discussion point, right? Because we had a motion and a second from me.
Yep, we're still discussing. Anybody has questions, bring them on.
Okay, so I just, the only thing that I wanted to is to make sure Tom has the same. I was going to ask Tom if he has the same as Chris. So funding the school at that amount puts us right at a 3.99% levy, right, Chris and Tom?
Correct. It puts the schools at 3.99. Hang on, let me get back to my other spreadsheet.
Okay. Tom, if you can chime in and tell me
Yeah,
what the
well-
levy is with that.
Yeah, definitely not the bottom line. And you do have to get the,
So Sherry, that gives the schools the maximum 4% allowed by law, and it brings the overall levy to 3.99.
Okay, that's what I thought you said. Okay.
this is with all your other cuts that we haven't fully, at least
Changed
scrubbed,
yet? Yeah.
scrubbed yet. Yeah. So, right.
And the last question I have that it isn't really, actually, never mind. I won't even ask it because we're already in the vote.
Well, this is, all right. Is there any other questions? I'm going to assume we have unanimous consent. Is there any further discussion? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, everybody. I know you guys work really hard.
Thank you for coming.
Welcome.
Thanks. All right.
I'll bring you something from Nashville.
Cool.
All right.
A great study.
Item 15 was discussion and possible vote on grand total for capital expenses that included school capital. I believe we already voted that, correct?
We did.
So I'm sure we want to do the, we're not prepared to do the final vote for the grand.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
can I get with Tom? I don't know, Tom, I don't know if you're available tomorrow to go over all the items I went over earlier,
Yes.
to make sure that you and I are on the same page and that the levy actually does come out to what I proposed it comes out to.
Yeah, looking
I
forward
know
to
that
that.
we still have one minor difference that would be on my number still has, and the library fully funded at what they requested, and I know that you're at 591. So, and there was another $250 that we have yet to find yet, but we will find it by tomorrow.
Right.
So we'll get this all reconciled, okay? So that as Tom and I are on the same, then I think your next week meeting, you can finalize and do a final vote. If that's, I just don't want you to do it half, without Tom and I getting together to make sure we're on the same page.
No,
I agree.
the more eyes on it, the better, and to keep Joe Schramm in the loop, because he'll.
No,
be doing
that's
the
fine.
agenda.
Yep, whoever you want.
He's here, be doing our agendas now, so.
Okay, all right.
Thor?
Yeah, I have one. Is Denise still on the line, by the way?
Yeah. Well,
Denise?
she's here, but
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, is she listening?
Denise.
So I just have one request, although the budget committee may not entertain it, but I certainly think that the town council needs to reconsider looking at the total budget line in a potential increase for our 4%, which they require a super majority to request an increase for, just in case. Take a look at the school request and see if there's a slight increase that they could potentially increase for if we want to consider it.
To go above 4%?
Yep. They have the authority to, if they have a super majority to do so, just in case they want to think about.
They've already indicated they won't do it.
I'm not encouraging them to do that. I don't know.
I know you're not encouraging, but they can certainly say that if they can authorize it, they can authorize it. But I'm just asking. I know they've said that, but
Chris Cotta, before we go to adjournment, I don't know if you had the notes in front of you. You had gave a possible levy and tax rate.
Yes. Hang on. Look, Denise is asking. While I pull it up, do you want to?
Yeah, please, Denise, go
I
ahead.
don't think I answered Thor's question, but I'm not sure I understood it. So what you all just voted tonight did not go above the 4%. I'm sorry, I just missed the school committee vote.
Yeah, we voted what the school committee requested.
The lower number.
Yes.
32.5, yeah.
School committee
Okay,
requested.
so that doesn't bring us above the 4%.
399.
What, Dave?
Well, we'll know for sure by the time.
Oh, for sure, but
If it doesn't, we'll have to come back and keep voting until we get to below 4.
But what Thor is asking is.
well, my point is this: according to the spreadsheet, the school is requesting a 1.18% increase. I honestly don't think that's an inappropriate increase for a year-to-year increase for the school. And although it certainly pushes us to a 4% increase, in the COVID years, certainly that may be pushing it, but just as a reasonable amount of increase for school cost increases, 1.18% is not an unreasonable increase. I don't think we should be blaming our school department for, certainly there has been a decrease in the number of students population in our school, which it does directly and proportionally work into the school aid assessment and calculation. But I don't think that we should look at school increase annually of 1.18% to be a reasonable increase. I think that we should really expect something more like 2% across the board for both municipal and school increases. And that is not an unreasonable tax increase, levy increase on the population. But they're only asking for a 1.18. And anything above that up to 2% seems like it's a reasonable request. So I'm just saying, let's be a little bit reasonable about this. And maybe there needs to be a relook at what the reasonable increase should be. So I'm saying, hey, maybe the town council should reflect and look and say, if the school is getting a cut from school aid, maybe they should look at potentially authorizing an increase in the 4% levy to support the schools, and see what that would really do. I'm just asking for that potentially to be looked at.
So what do you think of a 0.09% increase for a town? a town where we're telling our employees we can't give them an adequate raise to bring them up to the state level.
But
And I think, yes, I do agree with you that in a perfect world, that would be a good increase and that would be a reasonable increase. But we're not living in a perfect world right now.
no,
No, let me speak, please. If you want to go that way, then maybe we should get together with the town council and really put together a budget that we really need. Because that's not what we did today. What we did was we cut and we did the best we could so that because the schools were saying that that's what they needed. But I'll be frank with you, we're going to barely make it with the budget that we did right now. So yes, maybe the schools do deserve 2%, but maybe the town does too. And right now in this COVID situation, this pandemic situation, I think that we all got the best that we could. And quite frankly, I'm kind of a little insulted because we could have asked for a lot more and we need a lot more. And we did a lot of cuts. So if you're asking me, yes.
But I think that a lot of our
council, but I will not. But
Getting to be a free for all. Come on, let's bring it down. Let's bring it
but
down.
I'll vote no.
We're gonna get capital money. We're gonna get capital money from reimbursement. So that's gonna be reimbursed. No one got all the pay increases that Chris asked for were given. None of those were cut. So no one can complain about that. If we really wanted to cut, we should have cut those. So we weren't cutting any of those requests. So no one can complain about those. We gave everybody their 2+ increases that they requested. So no one's going to be complaining about those. All I'm saying is that the school needs additional operating costs, which are increased based on inflation. So all I'm saying is that you can normally expect an inflationary increase for operational costs of about 2%. And what we're talking about is if we get an additional 2 million or something, and we're not even expending any of the casino money. So all of that money is going to be spent. And Chris just said, all of that money has to be spent. So we're going to spend it on something. And it's not going to go to schools. So we're going to spend a lot more money. And you may not believe me now, but next year, no one's going to be looking back at this and saying, oh yeah, right, because you don't want to call me right. But that's what's going to happen. We're going to be spending an extra $2 million next year. That's not in this budget. And I'm just saying, why not just take a look at the schools and say, yep, they did an awesome job of giving us a 1.18% increase. That is incredible based on what their history is. I don't agree with the way they contractually increase their school budgets based on how the union negotiates these things. Absolutely, I don't agree with that. But that's not something we necessarily have control over. As a municipality, we don't have control over that because that's driven grossly by the big unions. And I know that for a fact. But given the fact that they did a pretty good job of reducing their budget to a 1.18 increase, that's a pretty good job that they did. And I just think that we ought to give them the benefit of the fact that maybe we do need to increase their budget a little bit. But I'm just saying that that's my input.
Chris, please, we had asked you the percentage and the rate.
Okay. I had it. So the overall levy goes up by 3.99. The tax rate goes from 1620 to 1471. It's a 9.22% tax decrease. And what was the other number we were looking for?
I think Mr. Cotta, I think it would be helpful to understand too, and I know this hasn't been completed, but that 14.7 whatever, that's going to be based off of the assessed value of the properties, and we haven't seen what that total number is yet from the assessment.
I do have that number. That number goes from $2,333,000,000 to $2,690,000,000, which is a 15.4% increase.
Wow.
Now, that's an increase because of the value, not because of growth.
Oh.
So but it'll all get redistributed based on where those values are.
So it's not necessarily, so just to be clear for anybody who's watching, it's not necessarily a decrease in your absolute tax bill. The decrease would only happen if your property did not appreciate to the same extent that other properties did.
Right. So what I would suggest people to look at their last year's tax value and bill and look at their new assessment and apply 1471 to it to see where the difference would be. I'm going to, we've done a couple of these, I think we did one. I don't have it on this particular sheet, but I think if you use like 300,000 as last year's value and the average goes up to 360 or 350, I forget what that number was, and apply the numbers there, I think that's on average what it would look like. I think that's the average home values.
Well, pretty much everybody has got their, I think, evaluations by now. I know I received mine, so I know what should be able to do the calculation with approximate. The only thing I want to say is, listen, if you read our town charter, if you've attended meetings over the years in this town, you start to understand that Tiverton doesn't want a lot of commercial growth. We don't want to grow into a big, huge town. We want to stay a small town. So one of the consequences of being a small town is you have to keep your smaller budgets. So it's all great to say we could get more, but it comes out of our pockets. And we have a lot of seniors living in this town. I mean, they're everywhere in this town. It's a large population. Most of their kids have moved away. They're responsible for their own homes and things. So we need to go easy on the taxpayers. And that's why I really, I don't want to pump our budget up any more than we have to. We need to stay conservative, and it's for the best interest of our town. Thought you had some.
Yeah, well, like John Edwards had said at the very beginning of this season, is that we are disproportionately dependent upon residential taxes.
And that's what we
want. Our revenue. I mean, if you looked at the data that Jay Edwards sent out today, if you look at our rate of revenue based on personal property taxes, we are dependent. We depend upon 70% of our revenue based on property taxes. We should be shifting our growth to assure that we have business property taxes or business growth to provide us revenue, to shift that revenue to businesses, and I'm not blaming the businesses that are in town. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm just saying we need to try to figure out a philosophy in our town to give us a business property or business revenue that shifts it away from personal property. We are on the wrong side of that average. And until we understand that, then the taxpayers that are personal property taxpayers are always going to be paying the majority of a huge majority of this revenue bill that we shouldn't be having to pay. And until the town council, because we don't own this problem, the town council owns this problem for growth. They need to shift a philosophy that starts promoting business growth that supports this business revenue.
Well, it's beyond our purview as a budget committee, but I can tell you from experience.
Well, it is but we need to start promoting this so that people understand this. That we need to
read our comprehensive plan. You'll note that it says small character about every.
It has nothing to do with that little plan. It has something to do with.
That's what.
Mr. Chair, I'm becoming concerned that we're deviating too far.
Yeah, we are. You know what? I just wanted to bring out the fact that,
Point of order. Get your asses back on track.
Yep. Well, we're pretty much ready to adjourn. So this was open discussion. It's for people.
Tom, you around tomorrow?
Yes. What's a good time for you?
Say 11.
Okay.
All right.
We actually still have we have one more. I put, which I don't know if we have the numbers. If you want to move it to the next agenda, I had put 15 and 16 to vote on the total for the municipal. I actually I put capital, but it's the municipal expenses and the total capital expenses, including the school. On page
We did that out of order. We did that earlier by accident. That's my fault.
Yeah, and I knew we did the capital. They actually have. I mean, yeah. So that's what I was saying, is that we voted on the municipal capital. And then I also put on there to vote for the grand total of the general fund expenses, which I don't know if we can do tonight.
No, that's going to be on, that's why Tom and Chris are going to work together, and that'll be on our next agenda.
Okay, so I'm going to make a
And,
motion
I think
that
we'll have
we-
resolves for the next agenda, maybe.
Right, you're gonna do those too.
Okay, so can I make a motion that we move agenda item number 16 to the next agenda as well?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have unanimous consent. Okay, for discussion, motion carries.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. We have a second.
Good night.
All right, good night.